Max Verstappen is no stranger to controversy, brilliance, or the occasional meltdown. But the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix was a crazy mix of the three. Verstappen's actions in the last laps of the race have become one of the season's most talked about events. And now Red Bull has opened up on it as well, and they're not happy. From safety car uncertainty to on-track hostility, and now the potential of a race ban, the implications could extend well beyond Barcelona. What exactly transpired in those closing laps? So, what does it all mean for Verstappen, Red Bull, and the title race? Here's a complete explanation of one of the most dramatic moments of this season. First off, Red Bull Formula One advisor Helmut Marko admitted he was perplexed by Max Verstappen's decision-making while witnessing all hell break loose in the final laps of the Spanish Grand Prix. During an interview with Service TV on Monday night, Marko described the decisive moment in Verstappen's race when he lost third place to Charles Leclerc after a safety car restart on lap 61. Verstappen's flamboyant moment on the restart set off a chain of events that concluded in the Dutchman seemingly purposefully driving into George Russell as his anger boiled over as the Mercedes driver attempted to capitalize. On the straight, I'd say Leclerc drove into Max's car, Marko stated about the Ferrari driver. Then came the situation with Russell when the Briton attempted to pass into turn 1 but went off the track. And you have to say, Max knows the regulations in detail. He immediately said, "Hey, he was out of control, and that's why I had to go wide." The internal discussion was that it was 50-50, and since it happened right after the safety car period, the impact of a 10-second penalty is much greater than if it happens mid-race. So, that was one thing. Max didn't want to give the position back, but he was instructed to do so. He did it under protest. After reluctantly handing fourth place back to Russell, the reigning world champion had another clash with the Mercedes driver on lap 64. Max lifted off the throttle, so we all assumed he was letting Russell through, and then suddenly he accelerated again, Marko recalled. I don't know what kind of misjudgment or thought process was going on inside him, and then, as they say, all hell broke loose. Verstappen received a 10-second penalty, dropping him to 10th place. The stewards also assessed 3 penalty points, putting him on the verge of a racing ban. There have already been issues in the past, Marko said of Verstappen's previous clashes with Russell. It was unnecessary, and a lot of points lost. But, because of all the incidents and wrong decisions that, unfortunately, happened, emotions simply got the better of him. Verstappen later apologized on social media for the unsportsmanlike move, calling it not right and claiming it shouldn't have happened. Marko, who agreed with the steward's 10-second punishment, joked that admission from Max doesn't come easily. And don't forget, he's already got a bit of a feud going on with Russell, he added. Red Bull also chose not to hold a full debriefing on Sunday night since Max was so heated. Marko explained, everyone goes their own way, and when Max is in a mood like that, the best thing is to leave him alone. Verstappen's precipitous plummet down the order has left many wondering what caused the meltdown. While Marko blamed emotional overload, a closer examination of the telemetry data reveals a far more complex picture. It was more than just annoyance. It was a series of strategic errors, tyre disadvantage, and wheel-to-wheel pandemonium. It all started with Kimi Antonelli's DNF, which triggered the safety car. The majority of the grid pitted to switch tyres for the final few laps. Max, on the other hand, was caught off guard by his previous 3-stop tactic, leaving him with no fresh softs or mediums. We had previously seen in FP2 that hard tyres were a terrible choice for this race, providing no substantial benefit. But Verstappen had no alternative but to put on a new pair of hards and attempt to maintain his position. The restart instantly revealed how inadequate the hard tyres were. Max lost rear traction exiting the final corner and was only able to maintain the vehicle on track thanks to an incredible piece of car control. It's a miracle Max wasn't eliminated from the race right away. While a fantastic save, the blunder lost him time, and with Charles Leclerc and Russell both on softs behind him, Max found himself in a precarious position. Leclerc had already pulled ahead of him at the top of the main straight, and he moved gently left to rejoin the racing line just before turn 1. But Max, being Max, was not going to give up his position so quickly, resulting in contact between the two. Classic racing. However, Verstappen's attention on Leclerc left him exposed to Russell, who had substantially more speed approaching turn 1 thanks to the slipstream. Russell was fantastic on the brakes. Telemetry data suggests that he braked somewhat earlier than Verstappen, and his front tyres were clearly ahead of Max's mirrors at the apex of turn 1. The regulations are simple in these situations. If the driver on the inside has their front axle ahead of the car's mirrors, beside the apex, the corner is theirs. There was more contact, and Verstappen drifted off track before rejoining ahead of Russell in the runoff area, despite having enough space on track to keep inside track restrictions. This is not legal, and Verstappen authorities later confessed that they thought it was reasonable that he had held the position. But, fearing a punishment, his race engineer advised him to hand back the position, well aware that a time penalty would be far more costly. It took Max 3 laps to reclaim the lead, and then things took an unusual turn. On the short straight between turns 4 and 5, Max halted and handed back the position, only to instantly slam the gas and lunge at the Mercedes. Telemetry shows Verstappen lifted off, only to reapply full power nearly immediately. Russell lifted at the same time, ready for turn 4, although having no expectations of such an aggressive maneuver. Comparing lap 64, where the incident occurred, to the preceding lap, demonstrates that this is not generally a position where a driver puts back on the gas so aggressively. What was Verstappen's intention? It is tough to say. According to the rules, a driver cannot assault for at least 2 turns after giving up a place. Surely Max is aware of this. Finally, the incident backfired on the Red Bull driver. Russell might have easily been the innocent victim, but Max paid the price. Valuable points were lost, and in a tight Constructors' Championship race with Ferrari and Mercedes, it may prove disastrous. If the physical contact and fines weren't enough, Verstappen's on-track outburst could have long-term implications. With 11 penalty points on his super license, he is just 1 race away from being suspended. With 11 of 12 penalty points on his license till the end of the month, Verstappen must avoid any crucial errors of judgment, according to Johnny Herbert. Heading into the Canadian Grand Prix, Johnny Herbert believes Max Verstappen will need to think long and hard about his racing style or risk stealing the 12th penalty point. Herbert said, "You've got to think about the penalty point situation. 1 point can be from very simple error of judgment. Does the driver need to think differently now? Yes. Max Verstappen, on the other hand, is more than just a driver. He's a 4-time world champion who has demonstrated the ability to win a wheel-to-wheel battle." Herbert added, "Max Verstappen is the smartest driver on the track. The ability he has to make the rules bend to his advantage is unlike any other. He has so much mental capacity he can push to the limit, but now he must be a smart racer." Verstappen is 3rd in the World Drivers' Championship standings, with more than half of the season remaining to close the 49-point gap with leader Oscar Piastri. According to Herbert, as a consequence, Verstappen will still go for the championship. He's still winning races and getting pole positions, so he's in a position that if the McLaren drivers have a bad weekend, he's right in the mix for the race win and the championship. That 1 penalty point from being banned will be on his mind. It will not change the way he's driving. For years, Verstappen has been the chased, but now he's the chaser. He'll have to be slightly more measured. Those little moments of aggression will have to be controlled. If the Red Bull driver is able to hold off until the end of the month, 2 of his penalty points will disappear on June 30th, following the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. However, he will still have 9 points on his record, with the Mexican Grand Prix providing the next opportunity to drop 2 points. In a season already packed with drama, Max Verstappen now finds himself in unfamiliar territory. The hunter, not the hunted. However, while he is still in reach for the championship lead, his margin for error has almost completely disappeared. Can he strike the balance between cutthroat competitor and measured champion? Or will he be forced to watch from the sidelines after one more emotional outburst? In any case, Barcelona may have signaled the beginning of a reckoning rather than the end of a story.